Welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, Ryan Ripken, and today, our special guest, we're going to be talking about a lot of baseball conversations, especially in the pitching department, but there is one foundation that we're going to touch on because I think it deserves a lot of light because it is something that is doing tremendous things for those involved. And for our guests, though, I especially now people watch the closing position, right? And for closers, it's the theatrics, the lights are turning off, everyone's getting excited. And that's all great. But how about this? The person that's joining us here in a second, not only did he go in for those entrances, he actually finished the games and is one of the best that ever did it. 601 career saves, 7-time All-Star, and by the way, was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2018. So without further ado, let's bring on Trevor Hoffman. And Trevor, thanks for joining us. First off, how are you doing? How are you feeling? I'm glad we got to talk a little bit before, but it looks like you're relaxing and enjoying your time out west.
I am, Ryan. Thanks for having me. First of all, and the introduction was great. I appreciated it. You know, I do watch the guys that are doing the closing jobs in the game these days, and you know, certainly back east with Craig and Kenley still plugging away in their career and doing amazing things and climbing up the saves ladder is pretty awesome to watch. So. Fan, relaxing, watching minor league baseball with my son out there still. It's a lot of fun to still watch the game.
Yeah, and I can relate a lot to your son on that. I had my minor league journey, got up to AAA, and we were talking off air. He would learn a lot of minor league towns that you've probably never heard of. And the same thing still rings true, even with the shuffle up. So I'm glad you're involved in the game. But before we get into the baseball talk, let's talk about something that's near and dear to you. And that is the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation. And for a lot of reasons, for those that don't know, this was a scholarship foundation that started back 1962, I would believe. And it was the idea of just how hard it is to put someone through college, through school, whatever it may be. And specifically for you, you have a connection with the Marine Corps as both your father and father-in-law were Marines.
That's right. My father fought in World War II, the Pacific Theater. My father-in-law in Vietnam, proud Marines. And so it was Tracy and I's, my wife's desire to honor their service and honor the men and women that have served. And for us, the best way to do it was actually in research, finding out the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation, as you mentioned, in the 60s was established when a Medal of Honor winner couldn't afford to send his kids to school. And he kind of passed the hat amongst his ranks, and they were able to fulfill a scholarship. And that was the impetus to get the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation started. And so instead of kind of doing our own thing, we wanted to hitch our wagon to something that was reputable and had 50 years of experience. And we did that. And it's been nothing but a great marriage, we'll say, from the start, that we're able to honor the men and women in service by educating their children. And so we had a big year this past year. Almost $11.7 million was gifted out. 100% of applicants receive financial aid. So there's about 20,000 recipients out there or applicants out there that we want to reach, that there's an opportunity to help them with their education. And the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation would actually love to do that.
Yeah, and then to piggyback off of that, this is something where it doesn't have to be, correct me if I'm wrong, Trevor, it doesn't have to be that you're just graduating from high school. It can be post-grad, it can be educational or technical programming. There's a lot of different avenues now. There's certain eligibilities for there. You have to have a GPA of over 2.0, but the message is, and what I love about this is, the foundation wants to keep going because it's trying to impact all the ones that they still haven't been able to impact yet.
Yeah, that's their motto. They're not done until the job is done. And so that's the objectives to go, not just your specific, after high school, moving on with your education, but any trade school, any accredited school that, whether it's cooking, a specific area of work, that those things are going to help. And they're looking to help anybody that does need that boost.
And then on top of it too, the San Diego Padres are also involved with this, and they chipped in with a foundation in your name. And if we can pull up the video a little bit about this part of here with the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation, is that this was a video taken here, or a photo taken of that award or the foundation in your honor, and you guys representing that to Paris there. And again, this is great. And by the way, hair looks great there, Trevor.
Yeah, it's flowing. It wasn't too bad. Paris was a great kid, local kid from San Diego. Really happy that we were able to respect her father's service and her getting the honor from the San Diego Padres. I'm one of 3 scholarships they give out. Randy Jones has got one in his name, and Jerry Coleman has the other one in his name. And so they each picked their respective charities, and the Marines Corps Scholarship Foundation was mine. And we've been doing that since 2015. So it's been great so far and helping kids out.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is giving back, people helping people. And for those that are wondering, you want to check the eligibility or to apply, check out www.mcsf.org/apply for more details, which is great, Trevor. And again, I'm still jealous of your hair. I keep bringing that up. My family doomed me from the start. But if you don't mind, why don't we talk a little bit of baseball, because that's the hot topic here, and especially in the summertime as it's heated up. And specifically, you mentioned 2 closers early on with Kenley Jensen and Craig Kimbrell. You know, it's going to be so hard to catch what you and Mariano Rivera have done. But what is something that you've watched from afar, since we're here in Baltimore, that you've really respected and kind of marveled with Craig Kimbrell over the years?
Well, honestly, I've had my eye on Craig since he broke in with the Braves. He came onto the scene really fast, dominating stuff. And really, his repertoire hasn't changed much. He's still throwing the upper 90s with a fantastic breaking ball. But what I see is just that aura of confidence and calm every time he's out in any situation, no matter it gets crazy. Like the last time I saw him was in Tampa, and he's ran through Tampa almost every time he's been out there. And honestly, it's really cool to see how comfortable he is still in the role. And Kenley as well in Boston has had a nice run lately with going up against Toronto, and they're just plugging away, man. And they stay healthy. Who knows? The sky's the limit still.
Yeah, it kind of brings me to this. You saved a lot of games. Again, only one other person could say that they saved more. It's not easy. And I think relievers, closer, it's a little bit more gratifying because you get recognized. I tell people, middle relievers, there's no glory there. It's no matter what happens, if you don't put up perfect zeros, you're terrible. But for in this case, for the Orioles, and I know Orioles fans are going, oh, well, Craig Kimbrell, he just blew a save against the New York Yankees the other night. His stuff to me has looked really, really good so far. But can you just elaborate just maybe the perspective of going into close a game? And do you know how many saves that you blew throughout your career, out of curiosity? Do you remember the bad times?
Yeah, I'm in the neighborhood of 70 blown saves. So it started getting to be a heavy number, which wasn't good. But you don't remember, you're right, you don't really remember all the good ones, maybe a few milestone ones, but you do remember that pitch that you didn't execute and you blew the game. And, fortunately, Craig, yesterday, he stayed in the game, was able to get the win by not giving up any more runs. And that's kind of part of the role too. It turned, now that we started a runner at second base, there's that little caveat. But honestly, just their consistency and in a finite manner. Like when you go out, it's a tightrope act. And with San Diego, we had an opportunity where our closer had worked a few days in a row, Robert Suarez, and we tried to get somebody else in there to close it down against Kansas City. And it was an opportunity where we were going to be able to sweep Kansas City, roll in Anaheim. And when those wins come out of your sails, weird things happen. It was a tough series against Anaheim. We have a pretty good road trip or homestand against Oakland. And then we go into New York and Philly with a lot of momentum, and everything kind of can change on one particular game. So, just the job that those 2 guys we mentioned have done, continue to keep the sail in their teams, winning the team's sails and staying consistent has been just a fabulous thing to watch.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. It's just the fact that, sorry, not bringing it up again, you blew 70 saves. Congrats, Trevor. That's great. But again, you were one of the best that did it, right? And that's the point I try to point out to everyone. Even the best that ever do it, you're not going to be perfect. And I think that's something where people get caught up on. And that's what I was referring to with relievers. And right now for the Orioles with Craig, they're trying to preserve him. But sometimes it's hard to be in that position. Can you just speak on what it's like to go in and close out a game, the adrenaline, and how do you personally be able to keep all of those feelings and emotions in check?
Yeah, it was almost an opportunity within the routine of the role that, you knew there was going to be the theatrics of an entrance song. There was going to be, the loud music. And for me to come in when everybody gets all hyped up and try and get them out with a changeup, it was total oxymoron. You just think you're supposed to come in and throw triple digits every time and be over and done with. And that's kind of what I watched growing up in the minor leagues and touching the big leagues, with Rob Dibble being a mentor and Brian Harvey being a mentor. And, the thing I took away is those guys couldn't have been polar opposites more, but the way they went about their business, but they were locked in. And so it was just a matter of figuring out a routine, finding out what works best for you. You mentioned the middle relief guys. Those guys are the most unsung heroes because they're keeping games tight. They're keeping your team into a relatively close so you can maybe hand it off. But it's a team within a team down there. And you love when guys just continue to pass the baton, throw up a zero, navigate these lineups, navigate the analytics, that they basically know what you're going to throw. It's like T. Gwyn back in the day, and your pops went in together with him in Cooperstown. Like, he was the revolutionary guy behind video work. He was splicing stuff and watching on team flights, and long before we had designated groups to do that. And so there's not really something a hitter doesn't know about the pitcher they're going to face these days.
Yeah, and I love that. I'm going to have to ask you a little bit more about that with Tony Gwyn. But again, being ahead of the game, the little things, being a student of the game. And for you, you had a lot of success because of the fact that obviously you knew how to pitch and you knew how to manipulate the ball and to do what you wanted to do. That's a big part of it, regardless of the analytics. It's the cerebral side, though, that has been going on in this game for a very long time. And maybe it's because of all of injuries. Maybe it's just seeing where it is. And Kenley and Craig are going to continue to try to climb this list. But, man, with all the rule changes, do you think that we're going to see somebody have a chance? Because, again, your career, especially for a reliever, correct me if I'm wrong, it was 18 seasons that you were in the big leagues. Does that ring a bell? Is that bringing back some memories?
I marvel at the fact that I'm sitting outside of the game about 14 years, and I can't believe I did it for about 18 years. So
yeah,
that whole window, I remember breaking in with the Reds in Billings, Montana, and my big league debut seemed like a distant memory. But as fast as it goes, it's a journey, and it's something that you prepare for. I mean, we're sitting here talking about your father, the Iron Man, and think about the day in, day out grind that you got to witness growing up, and those lessons that you learned from that. And likewise with just anybody that gets a chance to play the game of baseball professionally, you learn in the minor leagues as well how to learn to prepare day in, day out. And it's not easy. It's everyone kind of shows up at the game at 6:30, grabs a hot dog and sits down and watches for a couple hours. They don't see all the work that goes in behind the scenes to help your body prepare, to mentally get ready, for what you're going to face, whether you're a hitter or a pitcher. And so it's a grind, and I appreciate what guys are doing now. You mentioned a lot of the rule changes from a pitcher standpoint, that strike zone seems to be doing this more and more. They want to throw it down that garden hose, but guys' velocities are chasing it, and they are throwing harder these days, it seems like. So I don't know. It's a very hard game to play right now. It's hard to hit. It's a lot of velocity out there, a lot of being able to spin the ball. So it's certainly a fun game still to watch.
Well, and that's why the longevity part for me, I just don't know if reaching 600 is going to be touched as much moving forward, because just mentioned, if you had 18 seasons in the bigs, it's a lot of years of accumulating. Mariano Rivera, similarly, you have to pitch for a while, and there's no secret here. The pitching injuries have piled up. If we talked yesterday, it was a fire drill in Baltimore because the news dropped that Kyle Bradish, one of their aces, which people kind of expected, is done for the season. He's actually one of my former teammates too. So might have had a little bit of a hint that it was happening beforehand, but it's a gut punch. And then the same day, Danny Coulombe, their other pitcher, gets diagnosed with bone chips. He might be back in September. But so 4 Orioles pitchers, Trevor, have had surgery on their elbow alone. 3 of them are lost for the season. What, in your personal opinion, the velocity's up there, and it needs to be for this day and age. But is this something that have you experienced, I guess, any season that has had that type of injury specifically to pitchers that you can remember?
Yeah, no, it's a devastating effect in our game, no doubt, to see how many people on the mound are being ravaged by the UCL strain and tears. And so, if we had a specific answer, we'd be gravitating to it. That's a fact. Kind of an oxymoron. My feeling is, okay, in the strike zone that I got to pitch the bulk of my career in, you could show some command by hitting your spot maybe down the way, and then you get a called strike. Your catcher starts to work off the plate a little bit. If you show the ability to hit your spots, you have a tendency to get a little more of the plate. Okay. Where I'm going with this is I'm not trying to put the burden more on the hitter, like, it's even harder to hit. But if the plate were to widen, maybe guys wouldn't have to chase the velocity as much, and they'd learn to be able to add, subtract by having a little bit more wiggle room side to side with the plate. Again, it seems a little crazy because expanding the actual plate makes the strike zone bigger, but that's going back to when guys would pitch. They wouldn't necessarily seek 100 or a max effort every pitch chasing that velocity. Now, if they have a bigger plate, doesn't mean they're going to want to throw any less hard. So, that part of it can be argued still. But I do think, being a specific late inning guy, I had the ability to get ready for my inning. I didn't throw to get hot. I got hot to throw. I always paid attention to the number of throws I made in the afternoon. How would they pile up that particular day? And always think, maybe I'm going to run a few days consecutively to pitch, and how am I going to manage that? And so, I would have the luxury in the role that I was in to be able to do that. Not everybody does.
Yeah, I mean, and you're right. It's fascinating to me that you just mentioned about widening the plate, because they did just widen the bases. They did make those things like pizza boxes. I remember being in AAA and I played first base and standing on that for the first time. You're like, damn, that thing is massive. And then you're hearing some possibilities for other options. So I think the biggest thing is it's hard to see. Players are going to get rewarded for velocity. You're right. That's the reality of the sport. But at what cost? And that's what I'm talking about with the longevity side. And right now, the Orioles actually have a pitcher, Trevor, Cade Povich, that's up right now. He only tops out at 93. Later in the game, this is what I thought, which was amazing. It was a 2-0 count. Juan Soto's hitting. And Cade, the Orioles are up 3, and you got to give him one. And Cade throws a heater right down the middle, and Soto swings and misses. So deception and how you're able to use your body is still very well a part of the game, which kind of what you're alluding to then. Learning how to pitch, but specifically what works for your body. Am I articulating that well enough?
Absolutely. Understanding what you do well, and, mechanically to put the forces in bigger parts of your body rather than the extremities where it can't handle that kind of torque. So mechanically get sound. But you mentioned that the last gentleman, you talked about having command. Like, there's nothing wrong with being able to throw 93 miles an hour. That's still very hard. And it's very hard to hit. Go out and watch batting practice and see how many BP heaters get popped up into the turtle, or just lazy fly balls to the outfield. Like, it happens. What I see when pitchers that still have command, or they want to throw the kitchen sink at them early, they get behind. And when you get behind in the big leagues, I think is when you get hurt. But when you're aggressive and you put the onus on the hitter to have to be ready to go right away and then kind of work out from the middle, I know it sounds rudimentary, but for the most part, I think there's a little bit too much credit that goes away. But again, we talk about that strike zone being really small. The hitters know exactly the parameters of what that looks like. The umpire's really good at calling it. It's a harder time to pitch in the big leagues now, for sure.
Yeah, well, and especially now everything's more magnified. Every single play, there's a box up there. Here's the strike zone, and there's a lot of criticism. And so that's a different part of the game. I guess you could say some of these old rules, maybe the old written rules, have maybe gone away a little bit. The Yankees and the Orioles are getting a little bit heated the other day. Have you ever been involved in any big brawls, Trevor?
No, I mean, we rolled into Philly in '93, and those boys played a tough brand of baseball. And we were a young group that just got done with a fire sale, and we were all cutting our teeth in the big leagues. And there was a little brouhaha that I remember getting in with those guys. But for the most part, nothing happened late. We're trying to, if I'm in the game, we got a lead, I'm trying to finish it off and preserve a W. But when you start to see the number of games that you play in your division, and I know we've gone back to a little more unbalanced schedule, which is good, but for the past few years, playing 18, 19 games in your division against a particular team, and if you have your number a little bit, it's going to get spicy. And so it's nice to see that there's a little bit of separation with the number of times that you play and within the schedule being able to spread that out. But, Yankees, Orioles, they're going to go down to the wire the last week of the season. They're both fantastic rosters and teams. And, the Orioles are going to have to figure out a way to next man up in the rotation a bit. But that lineup, they're going to be able to score some runs.
Yeah, is there anyone in San Diego that maybe wants to be in a package back to Baltimore here for some pitching? I know
Jackson Merrill's from the area for sure. I know that we love him here, but him and James Wood grew up going to school, high school in that area, and I'm sure that they are Oriole fans. But we let James go. We don't want to let Jackson go.
I understand that, and I don't think, at least in this case, Manny Machado had his time in Baltimore. I don't think that reunion's happening anytime soon, just given the landscape. But it's a fun time. I'll tell you what, I was showing people that were complaining. Aaron Judge got hit on a 1-2 pitch. I don't know if you saw it. And it was a 1-0 game. And
right.
on an 0-1 pitch, Judge swung at a pitch that was that far inside. And then he gets drilled. And they're like, oh, it's intentional. I'm like, we're not having the conversation if Aaron Judge doesn't get hit. But also, Aaron Judge is 6'7", and he's trying to get his bat extended and hit anything over the middle of the plate or outside. And if he makes contact, right now it seems like it's leaving orbit. So I understand the thought process. But the Orioles hit 2 batters in that game, and both those runners scored. Last night, Gunnar Henderson looked like he got squared right in the back. Might have hurt the ball more than Gunnar. Orioles end up winning by 1 run. So the game has changed, definitely. Also, the game's changed rule-wise. This is something I want you to talk about here for a quick minute, and then we'll do some fun things. So I think everyone likes the playoffs. I think everyone loves the theatrics of that. It's entertaining. Not that everyone doesn't love a 162 season, and it's the dog days of August, but you have an idea that you think that MLB should look into, because looking at the other leagues, you think that they're kind of capitalizing on the playoff product.
I do. I think everybody was riveted to the television the last month watching the Stanley Cup finals, the NBA finals. The finals itself in the basketball arena didn't pan out maybe quite the way that everyone wanted to. Celtics are pretty tough unit to beat, but McDavid got hot in Edmonton, and they pushed the Game 6 tonight. People like the Game 7s. They like the long series, and I think that in baseball, we could dominate October. And all you have to do is, I'm just not a big fan of the 3-game series. We talked a little bit off air about 2008, I think, when the Rockies got really hot, and I ran into them, or I was one of the guys that gave up the blown save in Colorado in a 1-game playoff. Those are always exciting. And I think, we had that one year where 4 teams decided their fate in a matter of 15 minutes. That was crazy, but I'd love to see all 7-game series. I think you build your roster based off of that out of spring training to battle a full season. That season doesn't need to be 162. You cut it back to in the 50s. We had that long before. And then you have all 8 teams in each league battle it out with 7 games. And I think the true winner would ultimately show up. Like, momentum swings are great. And you go 2-2, and all of a sudden you have that 3-game series with a lot of drama built up to that point. And I just really think we'd have a lot of eyeballs all throughout October. It would compete with the NFL. Absolutely. I think people would turn on playoff games over a random Thursday game of somebody that doesn't matter in the NFL.
Yeah, I think that people love the suspense. I mean, playoff baseball, you're right. The hockey playoffs, you're on the edge of your seat almost every game. And in Edmonton, man, I am pulling for a Game 7 with Edmonton. But you're right, the theatrics, I mean, I'm biased. I'll say this. Playoff baseball to me is just different, and I think that's what that I think people are kind of missing. And I think that's what you're alluding to, is that adrenaline. Do you have any moments for you specifically that you can remember as either a player or just as a fan watching of like a playoff moment here where it was like that special feeling you're talking about?
Yeah, I had a couple really cool moments. My older brother, Glenn, played in Boston through the 80s, and so I got a chance to go to the 86 World Series. Sat behind a pillar down the right field line in Fenway, but just to hear the chants of Darryl in right field was incredible. But Fenway was on alive. And then me personally being through a couple postseasons in Qualcomm against the Astros and the Braves, man, it was electric. I saw it last year in Camden. The fan base was going nuts. and you're almost exhausted by the time the postseason gets finished. If you get a chance to run through it a little bit, I got tripped up a little bit by Texas and Boch. He has got a magic touch when it comes to the postseason, but Orioles are going to be back in it. The energy is going to be there. It's something that it's not like football. It's one game and you move on. Man, to have some multiple home games in the playoffs is a great thing.
Yeah, it's great. That's honestly why you, if you're a fan, you go to the games. You want to be able to experience that as long as you can. You're like, I just went through a whole season watching this. I want more than just one glimpse, one little glimmer or moment. Yeah, it's been a roller coaster of a season. But I'm with you. I think the 7-game series, I think, would be a lot of fun, and also it's going to challenge your depth of what you can do. And I'm sorry for bringing back up that wonderful memory against the Rockies. Where Matt Holliday scores the run and he face plants in there. But, you know, if it makes you feel better, they got swept in the World Series. I don't know if that makes you feel better.
Not really.
Yeah, I didn't think it would. But I just got to throw it out there anyway. How about this for some fun things, and we'll wrap it up. But you mentioned Tony Gwyn, and I've gotten a chance to talk with him and talk with his son, with Tony Gwyn Jr. But do you have any type of insight that you talked about the videos, but a Tony Gwyn story that just proves to people just how special he is? Because I will say nowadays, every athlete out there, a lot of people like to compare to this generation. Guys throw harder, they hit the ball harder. You know, this generation has the quote unquote better player. And I try to remind people, like, guys like Tony Gwyn, that they don't build them like they have a lot of great players, but it is a different breed when we're talking about a guy like Tony Gwyn.
Yeah, I came over in a trade with San Diego from Florida, June 25th of 1993. And from that point to July 4th, 1994, Tony hit over 400. Like 404 was his cumulative average. And he finished the 94 season strike shortened, but at 394. So it became commonplace to see 2-3 hits a night, which doesn't happen. And, you know, he just took it in stride. He was humble about it. To watch him hold court with the media in the dugout before games, he just was so on top of what they were discussing in the area about our team. And we'd mentioned the video, but, you know, one of the things I really enjoyed looking back on is getting a chance to see him with his son, Tony Gwyn Jr., in the clubhouse. I'm sure you spent a lot of great times and remember a lot of great memories of going in the clubhouse. And Tony Anthony was there probably about 8 years old when I came over. And to just see their interaction on the field and the clubhouse, you know, talking about what he's going to eat, stay away from the sugar, like get something healthy in you, you know, work off the tee. You got a game tomorrow, you know, summertime. So being able to have family around and live and play in your city allows those type of things. You don't miss out on as much. And just that interaction to see the way Tony raised Anthony and with such great values. And now we get a chance to listen to Tony give colored detail on radio and television here in San Diego now. It's such a blessing to see the great work that Alicia and Tony did with Anthony.
Yeah, I know. He and I've got a chance to talk with him too. He's fantastic. And for Tony too, I tell a lot of hitters that are younger, if you want to be a great hitter, use the whole field. I'm like, well, you got to hit the ball out of the ballpark. I'm like, well, go watch some Tony Gwyn highlights. That guy could hit the ball anywhere he wanted to. And as a pitcher, that was the most frustrating. And that leads to my next thing. You probably have had some fun matchups, but is there a player out there over the years that either just kind of drove you crazy, or that was one guy that you maybe couldn't figure out? Do you have one of those guys that you could list off for us?
Yeah, everybody's got that guy. My guy is going into the Hall of Fame this year, and Todd Helton. I couldn't get him out to save my life. Like, it just got to the point where let's just walk him. Like, it would be better just put him on base instead of letting him drive somebody in or watch a ball go into the gap and let him run. But, you know, Todd was a great hitter. He was able to make those adjustments within at bats, not, you know, pitch to pitch was great. Never got him off balance with a changeup. And so he was that nemesis that I could never get out.
Yeah, I was looking at that because, I mean, that was your pitch, setting people up and being able to do that, especially to a lefty. You know, it all lines up, and he just continued to be a thorn in your side. Did you ever have a fan moment as a player, that one that you really kind of took you back? Is there any moment there where you became a fan of the game and kind of in awe of what you were doing, like of what you were a part of?
You know, I think some of the camaraderie we had in the clubhouse. I was a fan of the game. I'm a fan of being a teammate, and we had Kangaroo Court. And so I know this isn't really where you wanted to go, but it's a
Oh,
great
no,
story.
this is exactly where I wanted to go. You want to talk about Kangaroo Courts? I can talk about Kangaroo Courts all day.
They're some of the best things as far as bringing a group together. Long story short, we had the Kangaroo box in the kitchen where we would eat. Big signs, do not touch. I got railed with a horse crap case. I went in and took it out. They had court. The court case doesn't show up. They accuse me of going in there. I say no. They make up a fake video of someone wearing my jersey, going in, pretending like they took it out, setting me up. I deny it, but then they put somebody mic'd up in batting practice walking around in the outfield with a camera stationed in the first base dugout and getting me to admit on a mic that I went in and took it. And that came out in the next court case. Wally Joyner was behind the whole thing. He was a mastermind at it. He was an amazing judge. And it was just a moment where I'm like, where else are you going to get a chance to be a little kid at an adult age and have that kind of fun? So that was I love Kangaroo Court.
Oh, I love it. And also that's just the detail to actually do this where it means absolutely nothing in the grand schemes, but it means everything to the team.
Exactly.
These are the stories. See, these are the stories. We were getting some stories about the minor leagues and traveling around. I remember Tim Raines Jr., and he was my hitting coach, and this was just, a different situation. But these are the stories where you build that camaraderie. We told our bus driver to not park close to the stadium. What's he do? He parks close. Foul ball, shatters the window. We have to drive 5-6 hours after the game. Downpour. We have it taped up with like a sheet of, I don't know, I almost felt like saran wrap, and that thing is just humming water into the bus.
I love that.
And there's Tim holding his hands up with it, just laughing hysterically. And then we got to the next place and lost the next 2 games. So, I mean, but yeah, it's all part of it. Last thing here, and then we'll get you out of here. This has kind of become a controversial conversation here, but this is brought to you by our friends over at Stuggies. They are known for the crab mac and cheese dog. And I would like to preface this, Trevor. I consider that as a topping, like a specialty dog, right? We're not talking about specialty dogs. We're not talking about throwing onions and, sauerkraut. We're talking just condiments. You can go plain or any condiment. Trevor Hoffman, what's going on your dog?
What's going on my dog is mustard, and that's it. I'm a Goulden's kind of, Grey Poupon kind of mustard over the top of my hot dog.
Okay, you know what? I'm just not a big mustard guy. I respect it. I usually, if I eat a plain hot dog, are you okay with that? Is that like a judgmental thing? Okay, thank you. I have a lot of people that look at me the other way, and I go plain hot dog eaters are people too.
Absolutely.
So wait. Yeah. What is the? Did you say Grey Poupon?
There it is. Yeah.
Grey
it's like
Poupon.
A little spicy mustard, we'll say.
Grey Poupon. Grey Poupon. Okay, I'm gonna throw that out there next time and act like I know what I'm talking about. When I'm honestly,
straight yellow mustard works pretty good too. Throw some onions on top. I'm a happy camper.
Okay, you know what? I respect that, and I respect you. You're a nice, genuine guy. You're doing a lot of great things outside of the game of baseball, and on top of it, that's what I try to tell people. There are some great players, but that's only part of the story. They're better people outside of it, and you're doing something great, especially with the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation. So everyone check it out. We'll have the details for it. But Trevor, appreciate the time. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your hair. And I'm going to go look for my options on the other side.
Ryan, I appreciate you, man. I had a good time today. Back at you with all the accolades and respect for you and what you're doing. Look forward to seeing your dad in a couple weeks.
All right. Sounds good. Yeah, give him